Hello, dear friends. Welcome to today's webinar. I'm really excited and I can't wait. Okay, let me just mute myself here and here. Okay, so let me know if everything is okay with the sound and with the picture. I hope everyone is here or will be joining us. Today's topic is about anger management. And we are going to talk about the astrology, the psychology, and also some helpful remedies which we can use to help ourselves. I will also show you some examples so you can see how we can interpret this with some real charts. And let's get started. I'm really excited because I think that that's an extremely important topic. I think that anger is one of those emotions that is pretty common, maybe now more than ever, because many of us may feel disempowered or even trapped or in a way somehow in a difficult position, and this can very often be a response to that. So let me start with reading you what is the definition about anger described by the American Psychology Association, and this is actually coming from their dictionary. So they define anger as an emotion characterized by tension and hostility arising from frustration, real or imagined injury by another, or perceived injustice. It can manifest itself in behaviors designed to remove the object of the anger or behaviors designed merely to express the emotion, like swearing, for example. Anger is distinct from, but a significant activator of aggression, which is behavior intended to harm someone or something. Despite their mutually influential relationship, anger is neither necessary nor sufficient for aggression to occur. So this is very important. Anger is something that can be triggered by something or someone as a response to this. So usually we are angry with something or someone. We can be angry with ourselves. That's also a possibility. We can be angry with a particular situation, with a person, with some kind of event. So usually there is a direction. The anger is directed towards something or someone. And one thing I actually prefer to show you, let me see. Hopefully I will be able to share my screen with you. I want to show you the scale. Yeah, here it is. Hope you can see it. The scale of the different emotions that we may experience, and their vibrational frequency. So it's a little small, but hopefully you can see it. Anger is at around 150, but as you can see, this is not the most negative emotion we can experience. Below this, we have also fear, grief, guilt, apathy, shame. And of course, there are much more pleasant emotions than anger, like courage or even neutrality. But what I want to show you here, and this is very important, is that anger can also come as a response to a more negative emotion, which we don't want or we can't handle with. So, of course, anger is not pleasant. It can be very hurtful for us or even for other people around us. But this is not the most unpleasant emotion we can experience. And very often, also, we cannot stay for too long at this state. We cannot stay angry like all the time. It's just physically impossible. And very often we can switch into another emotion, which can be usually more passive. So we may either switch to feeling guilty or ashamed or depressed or sorry for ourselves. And this is kind of like a way for us to balance our physiology. So this other condition is not pleasant as well, but it allows the body to readjust. And this is actually called a crazy eight. It's, well, Tony Robbins talks a lot about this, and I really think that this is a very helpful explanation of what we very often experience. So if we are angry for certain amount of time, then we usually switch to something different. Again, usually more passive, either shame or guilt or depression. Then we also cannot stay for too long at this state. So eventually we bring ourselves back to something more active. Again, usually it's anger or blame or frustration. So very often we change, our emotions change. And all of this is very important if we want to understand also what's kind of like at the root, or what is the basis, the foundation for our frustration or for the lack of peace of mind, so to speak. So anger very often may come as a response to one of those more passive negative emotions: shame, guilt, fear, depression. So what I'm saying here is that from one side, anger can be kind of like masking something deeper. Very often, if we cannot get through some kind of pain or fear or something kind of like more depressive or a real depression, we can use anger as a way to get out of this negative condition. So in certain situations, this may also be a good sign. And of course, I'm not talking about the cases when, for example, you can hurt yourself physically or emotionally, or when you are hurting other people physically or emotionally. Obviously, in those cases, we really need actual professional help, and there is nothing to be ashamed of. But I think that most of us experience this on a, well, sometimes regular basis or not, and especially in such times when so many things are not under our control. And if you think about it, when are really things under our control? I think it's hardly ever, but now we can feel this really, really intensely. So one of my points is that sometimes anger can be better than some of the other emotions that we may experience. And also anger may show some kind of improvement. For example, if you have felt really depressed or sad or like drained energetically for too long, if at a certain point you switch to irritation, frustration, or even anger, and again, I'm not talking about the cases when you are putting yourself or others in danger, but it's just, the anger, which is, making you want to do something or yell at someone, but without being abusive, of course. So sometimes anger might be a sign for improvement. And also, if we hardly ever feel angry, this may also be a sign that there is something which is not really fine. And this is especially true when anger is actually justified. For example, you're being mistreated or something wrong is happening in your life to you or to someone you love. If you are incapable of reacting to this, this may also be a sign that you have problems with anger, because anger can be what we call hot anger. It's the excessive and expressed anger. And there are one type of problems with this reaction, but there is also the other possibility, which is called cold anger, or passive anger, or suppressed anger. This is the time or the cases when we are incapable of processing this emotion properly. And obviously, there can be many, many reasons for that, including how we have been raised. And if we have been allowed, especially as children, to express our emotions, because there are situations and experiences, families where anger is just not allowed, and children may learn from a very young age that this is kind of forbidden for them. And the truth is that this energy just cannot disappear, and sometimes it may regress back to one of the lower vibrational emotions. For example, fear or depression or shame or guilt. And it may turn more into self-anger or self-aggression. And obviously, this may manifest in different ways, including some kind of physical symptoms and problems. So anger is a really interesting state. And again, the point here is sometimes feeling angry can actually be a good sign. So let me go back here. And if you have any questions or comments or shares, please feel free to type them in the chat. I would love to exchange ideas and answer your questions, of course. So from an astrological point of view, we are going to talk about some of the possible indications or how we can explore anger in the birth chart. But just again, a few additional thoughts on this. Anger, as we said, could be a way to kind of like escape from another negative emotion, usually more passive. Anger also can be used as a distraction from pain, usually emotional pain. Sometimes it could be also the physical pain. So we are kind of like pumping up ourselves or kind of like tuning into this energy because it's easier than dealing with pain. So people who have been hurt in whatever way, emotionally, physically, who have been traumatized, may also respond with anger. And obviously, this is not supposed to be kind of like, blaming them or accusing them. We are just trying to understand better how things may work. So no blame, no guilt. I really like this principle, and I may remind you of this quite often. Also, as we said, anger could be used as a way to avoid other feelings. And one of the feelings that we may avoid is also feeling vulnerable. This is pretty common, pretty human, especially if we have felt vulnerable, if we have been hurt. Anger may show up as a solution for this. When you are angry, even if you imagine, the animal world, the animals, when they are angry, they look dangerous. So probably no one will attack an angry lion or tiger, right? So when you are showing up anger and you are making it visible to others, this can be also kind of like a protective mechanism. So we want to, kind of like set some kind of boundaries, even if this is not the best way. For us, at a certain point, it might be. So pain and vulnerability are also things that usually need to be addressed if we want to work with anger. Now, let's talk about the astrology. So, first of all, the whole chart is very important, the whole astrological chart. So, we do need to analyze it, and there are no shortcuts. But of course, there are indications which can be even more relevant. And those are the things that I want to discuss today. What I find really, really important when it comes to anger management is, of course, Mars. Mars is the active force, our personal will, our desire to protect or to achieve things, to take action. So Mars is definitely related to anger expression. Pluto may also be related to this. Pluto is the higher octave of Mars. So if you have some Pluto issues in the chart, this may also indicate problems with anger. Also, the two signs which are ruled by Mars and Pluto, Scorpio and Aries, if they are more triggered in your chart, anger may also be something which you need to deal with. And also, other signs, of course, are affected by this, but in a different way. For example, signs in which Mars is very weak, like Libra, like Cancer, they usually don't like this emotion. They usually struggle with expressing it, or they may have more of the cold type of anger, the passive type of anger. So please don't take this literally. Only the sun sign is never enough to kind of like reveal your story or what you are dealing with or your psychology. So if you're an Aries person, please don't take this as I'm saying you do have problems with anger, all of you. This is not always the case, but I'm giving you some options to explore and the most common things that you may find. So Mars issues, Pluto's issues are very important. Certain signs, as we said, Aries and Scorpio are at the top for the more active, hot expression of anger. The signs in which Mars is weak, Cancer, Libra, Pisces as well, also a more sensitive sign, they may struggle with this expression, with the open expression. And one more thing, which I also want to mention about analyzing this and understanding how the person experiences anger or what's their relationship to anger, is also the moon. The moon in the birth chart is very important for how we process emotions, all the emotions that you can imagine. So some people are capable of processing emotions faster. Others can kind of like be stuck with certain emotions for a longer time. Generally, the moon is so important for how we connect to the outer world, how we connect to the closest world around us, and how we process things internally. So the moon is not the planet which can describe our whole emotional reality. It's more about how we process, how we connect to the different emotions. So when it comes to the moon, what I would look at is, first of all, of course, the sign position. If the moon is in Aries or in Scorpio, of course, we might explore those topics. And again, not every moon in Aries person will have anger issues again, but they may respond more actively to the stimulus from the environment or to whatever's happening internally. And generally, also, another thing very important is the speed of the moon. How fast or slow is the moon in your chart? This is something which can vary. So the moon may have a speed around 12 degrees, 11 degrees and 50 minutes is kind of like the minimum. And the maximum can be a little bit more than 15 degrees. Basically, those degrees represent how many degrees the moon can go through within 24 hours on the day when you were born. This is the speed of your moon. So around 12 degrees is a slow moon, around 15 degrees is a fast moon, and 13 and a half is kind of the average. So generally, people with a slower moon, let's say 12, 13 degrees per 24 hours, they may struggle more with processing the emotions fast. It doesn't necessarily bring problems with the anger, absolutely not. But if there are other indications in the chart, which may show that sometimes the person may struggle with anger, a slow moon can make the person stuck in this for a longer time, or it may take them more effort, more time to overcome certain emotions. And that applies not only to the anger, of course, but also to any other emotion, frustration or feeling hurt or whatever. So the speed of the moon is also relevant to this. And if the moon is really fast, usually things may come and go faster. It doesn't mean that they are immune to anger issues, absolutely not. Those people may actually respond quite fast. And of course, they may get really angry, but usually they tend to let go of those emotions faster. So this is something quite important for if you want to understand more the emotional world, the emotional reality of someone, pay attention to their moon, especially the sign and the speed of the moon. Also, the moon in the fixed signs, those are Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, and Aquarius. They may also kind of like stay stuck in certain emotional states for a longer time. Not everyone, not all the time, but this could be one factor which can be added to other things in the chart as well. So obviously, this is something big as a topic. Anger management, anger in the birth chart, anger generally in psychology. So in this session, I will focus mostly on Mars. But if you're interested in a more in-depth course or training, please let me know. I can consider this, and I can create something more extensive with perhaps more practice. So please let me know if this is something you are interested in. And also, if you want to join us, you are welcome to come to Mars Stars membership. This is the new platform, the new place where you will get so many things. I will talk about this more at the end, but just know that you can join us for free. Right now we have a free trial, and I'm not sure for how long this will be. So if you want to check it out, it won't cost you anything for now. So you will get there access to all of my courses. The value is almost $2,500, including the foundational astrology course and also live webinars with me each month on a specific astrology topic, one additional Q&A session, monthly horoscopes. We also have a private community, Astro Circle. So yes, and all of this will be expanded in the future for sure. So with your membership, you are getting access to upcoming courses as well. So as soon as I publish a new course, you will have it immediately with your membership. So check the link below or go to marsstars.net if you want to learn more. And of course, sign up for your free trial. And with that being said, let's continue and let's talk about Mars. As I said, it's a pretty big topic, so we cannot cover everything within one session, but I want to give you the hints, what you can explore, what can help you to understand the situation better. So definitely the first thing would be Mars. As I said, Pluto can be relevant. Certain aspect configurations can be relevant as well, like tau squares, for example, or also certain patterns like the ball configuration. Let's say Pluto as a planet could be relevant. The fire element also can have issues with, expressing too much anger or having excessive anger. The moon as our way to process emotions as well. So again, the whole chart is important, but Mars is at the top of this. So that's why I decided to start this discussion with exploring Mars. And the things that we need to look at are basically everything about Mars: the sign position, the house position, the aspects, the direction, whether Mars is direct or retrograde is also very relevant. The speed of Mars as well could be important. So, as we said, also, we are gonna look at different possibilities. What kind of relationship we may have with anger. So I will try to kind of like symbolically use 3 categories. Perhaps it's not always that simple, but we need to start somewhere. So the 3 categories I will look at are excessive expression, or the hot anger, or I think it's pretty clear what we mean. This is the time when someone is actively and sometimes uncontrollably expressing their anger externally. So this is the excessive hot anger. The other category is the suppressed anger or the cold anger. This is the case when it's more internal, or we feel like we are not allowed to express it, or it's not always that we are not allowed, but in some cases, certain planetary energies or signs can make it really uncomfortable. So this kind of this could be like not aligned with our other values. For example, we want to be, and we can be really compassionate and have empathy for others. And we may feel like anger is unacceptable. So this is also kind of a pattern, a possible pattern, which can bring to suppressed anger or cold anger as well. I mean, kind of like the same thing with those two expressions. So excessive, suppressed, and the third category is the adequate expression. By adequate expression, I mean that when something happens which is not okay, whether you are mistreated or there is injustice, and basically when it's appropriate to be angry, you do feel this emotion, but you are feeling it and you still have some control over this. So you are not hurting other people, you're definitely not hurting yourself, and you, that's very important, take action. One of the most important things about anger is that we do need to take some action. After all, as we said, one of the main planets related to this is Mars, and Mars is the planet of taking action. If we don't take action, this may also trigger anger issues, by the way, usually more of the suppressed, the cold anger, or a self-anger, anger with ourselves. So again, the point here is not to blame ourselves or blame anger as, ever occurring in our life, because we do need this. Anger can motivate you to make changes, to fix something which you don't consider as right, to protect yourself or the people you love. So anger can be an adequate reaction. And as soon as we have healthy control over it, and as soon as we don't live in this, as soon as we don't stay stuck with this emotion, this can be a very healthy and adequate state. So how we are going to describe this astrologically? Well, it's a question, but we'll see. So let's start with the more excessive expression, the open or hot anger, or the uncontrollable anger. I will give you some points. And again, we always need to consider the whole chart with all of the indications, but we do need to start somewhere. So generally, when Mars is really strong, this may trigger some excessive anger. It's like we are responding, we are sometimes impulsive, we are more impatient. That's very typical. And this may happen when we have more fire energy in the chart, and also when Mars is in a fire sign. When Mars is in Aries, one of the signs that he rules, this can definitely happen. Also, in the other signs of Leo and Sagittarius, this may happen at times as well. So the fire positions for Mars tend to be more expressive, and potentially they tend to bring more of the excessive expression or the hot type of anger. Scorpio, as the other sign which is also ruled by Mars, could be relevant as well, even though the expression there could be different. So Scorpio is not necessarily open as a sign to share this with others. So they may have some anger issues, but they may keep it private for longer. But of course, they can also have those kind of like explosions of anger. So generally, the fire positions of Mars and the Scorpio position may bring more of this excessive, extra anger, so to speak. Also, when we talk about the house positions, Mars in the angular houses, but especially in first house or even Mars in 10th house, may also trigger this. And it's very important to look at both of those, the sign and the house position in combination. And actually, in one of the examples which I will show you, we are going to have a very interesting contradiction. And of course, I want to thank the wonderful lady who agreed to provide the birth details of their family. So one of the examples that we are going to look at has Mars in Libra, a very soft, very diplomatic, actually very weak position for Mars, but in first house. So we will talk about this. What happens when there is a contradiction? Because Mars in first house generally can bring more of this energy, and it can be expressed. So expressed more externally, I mean. So Mars in the angular houses, and especially in first house, in seventh house as well, usually the partner or other people could be somehow provoking us, or could be, yeah, part of the whole story. With the suppressed anger or the more difficult external expression, or if we feel kind of like inadequate, or if we feel like it's not okay to express anger, we do have some common characteristics of Mars. Mars in a weak position. So Libra, Cancer, Pisces, Taurus, of course. Those are signs which are not comfortable with expressing anger and overall with feeling this emotion, and with kind of like, being aggressive, even if that's necessary. They don't really like it. So this may turn into a more, well, kind of like a different expression. For example, they may allow the anger to build up until the point when they cannot contain this anymore. So then it's like a horrible explosion. Or, of course, it may also be more internalized, like harming themselves, or unhealthy behaviors, or even some kind of physical symptoms. For example, headaches. This is a very Mars, typical for Mars problem. After all, the head is generally ruled by Aries and Mars. And if we cannot process this emotion, all this energy may go to our head. So if we struggle with headaches, very often this could be a sign of some kind of Mars issue. Also, for example, people who tend to have more accidents, falling, or cutting themselves while they're cooking. Of course, it may happen to everyone sometimes, but if this is a pattern, if you are frequently hurting yourself unintentionally, of course, there is something behind it usually, and you need to look at that. So it could be a sign of unprocessed or passive anger, or even self-aggression. So Mars in a weak position could be related to problematic expression. Mars in the water signs, especially Cancer and Pisces. Scorpio is a different story. Also, if you have intercepted Mars. So I have a video on interceptions. If you're not familiar with this concept, you can go to my channel and explore this to learn what is interception. Basically, it's kind of like symbolically a locked sign in a whole sign locked in one house. And if you happen to have a planet there, the planet can also be locked or intercepted. And this is also problematic for the Mars expression. And it tends to bring more of the suppressed or passive anger or cold anger. So for whatever reason, we cannot connect to this energy in a healthy way. So Mars intercepted in any house could bring this. And for example, Mars in 12th house also could bring kind of like some suppression, like we cannot access this, or it's working more internally. In the other water houses, 4th and 8th house, Mars can also work in a more passive way, more internally, more towards ourselves. So, of course, each sign position and each house position has some specific characteristics. So we really cannot go through everything today. But again, I'm just trying to bring you the logic and some hints which you can use to explore the whole picture. So Mars, certain house positions of Mars can also bring some suppression or difficulties with connecting to this energy. Okay, one of the questions, of course, is what is an adequate expression? So I guess we can go into a more philosophical discussion here and talk about it for a long time. I won't do it right now. Again, as an adequate expression, I take this as being able to feel your anger when you are supposed to feel angry, when it's appropriate to be angry, without losing control over the situation, without letting anger dictate your actions, and also without staying in this state for too long, and feeling and being capable of taking some action. So again, we can chat about this, but for simplicity, that's what I will use. And what are the astrology indications? This may actually be kind of like the most difficult to describe, but overall, when Mars is in a strong position, but at the same time balanced. So not every fire position of Mars will bring this, like uncontrollable expressive anger externally. So Mars, let's say in Leo with some positive aspects, can be quite adequate. When they are offended, when they are provoked, when they are attacked, they can respond. But then again, they have the control and they don't live in this state. So when Mars is strong, but balanced and also with harmonious aspects, the aspects are extremely important. The aspects between the planets are kind of like a way for the planets to communicate with each other. So certain aspects can definitely affect the expression of Mars. So again, strong but balanced Mars with harmonious aspects tends to be the most adequate. If Mars is extremely strong, if Mars is challenged by other planets, or if Mars is really, really weak, usually we do have issues with anger. Okay. Now I would like to talk about the aspects. So again, this is like really, really important, and we can talk about each planetary combination for a long time, but I don't want to overwhelm you. Plus, we don't have that much time. So I will just give you the most important points here. And I kind of like put here the possible aspects again in 3 categories. The first category is the aspects of Mars with the Sun and the Moon. They are not the same, but they usually affect us more personally. So the difficult aspects between Mars and the Sun usually bring more of the open expression. Usually they are more active. Of course, the signs here will be very important. It's one thing to have, for example, Mars, Sun in conjunction in Cancer, and it's another thing to have, let's say, the Sun in Aries and Mars in Capricorn squaring it. Those would be totally different situations. So we do need to keep in mind the signs. But usually the Mars-Sun aspects tend to be more connected to the open expression. And also they may bring self-anger or self-aggression. We might be beating ourselves up. We might be constantly frustrated with ourselves. Unfortunately, sometimes we may hurt ourselves, intentionally or not. So this is very important for how we connect to this. And usually if there is a problematic aspect, we have a problem with the anger, with the energy of anger. And I have seen cases, of course, when this escalates to explosions or too much excessive anger. And I have also seen cases when the person really doesn't like this emotion and they try to cut themselves out of it. So this, of course, may also bring problems. The other combination, Mars-Moon, tends to bring more of the suppressed anger. But this may also bring anger towards the person themselves. So that's why I'm putting those two in one category, Mars-Sun and Mars-Moon aspect, even though usually, as I said, one is more open, that's the Sun-Mars aspect. The Mars-Moon aspect tends to be more internally processed and might bring more of this, like feeling uncomfortable with the anger emotion. But again, this may also turn into self-anger. So this is one category. The other category includes the aspects between Mars and Mercury, Venus, or Jupiter. Those seem to be the most unproblematic, if I can use this expression, or kind of like the easiest. Of course, when we have challenging aspects between those planets, we can still have some Mars issues. For example, Mars-Mercury may turn more into a verbal aggression, whether we are the ones who experience that or kind of like provokes that, or the one who suffers from that. For example, someone else is bringing this energy. But yeah, usually from a psychological point of view, there's still something that we need to work on. It doesn't matter on which side of this we are. It's still also related to us. So Mars-Mercury may bring verbal aggression or aggressive communication, but it can also be handled, I think, easier. Mars-Venus, this aspect can provoke jealousy, of course, anger issues in relationships with the people we love. We may feel emotionally hurt. If we feel pain or if we feel frustrated in relationships, this may trigger anger issues as well. And Mars-Jupiter as a combination can also be triggered by injustice or misjudgment, or if we feel like we deserve more, or we are unappreciated, or we don't receive enough. That's what usually may trigger the Mars anger. But again, usually if we have only those aspects, if there aren't any of the other more problematic aspects in combination, those aspects are not that difficult to work with. That's why I put them in symbolically in a separate category. And the last category are planets which tend to be the most problematic: Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. All of them have, or each of them has, a very different influence. So yeah, they can affect us in a different way. Mars, Saturn as a combination can trigger lots of anger issues, but in different ways. So I have seen people who have oppositions between Mars and Saturn, and they are really aggressive. They can be violent sometimes, really. And I have seen also others who also have Mars, Saturn conjunction, square, opposition, but their Mars energy is blocked. So here we may have many options, but one thing you can almost be sure of is that there is a problem with this energy. And it will really depend on the strength of each of those planets, which comes from their sign position, and which of those dominates. Sometimes they can be kind of equal, but most of the time, one of those planets is stronger. For example, it's one case if you have, let's say, Mars in Capricorn, where Mars is exalted, and Saturn in Cancer. Saturn is very weak in Cancer. And that's one story. And another story would be, let's say, what should we take? Like a conjunction between Mars and Saturn in Aries, for example, or in Cancer or in Scorpio. So it's very important to evaluate this, which of the planets is stronger. And usually if Saturn is stronger, we tend to control this energy more, and Saturn can block this energy more. Of course, every now and then Mars may find its way to, make a scene, so to speak, but usually we tend to suppress this energy more if Saturn is stronger. If Mars is stronger, then it can be more uncontrollable. But again, each story is different, but this is a truly difficult aspect, and it shows that we need to work with this emotion. Mars Uranus, on the other side, can bring more sudden and kind of like intense expressions, but usually they tend to be short lasting. So it's kind of like burst and then it passes. It can be very uncontrollable. So of course the person may kind of like lose control over a short period of time and sometimes maybe do something they will be sorry about. So it's kind of like unexpected and uncontrollable. But usually it's again for a shorter period of time. And it tends to bring more of the active expression. And again, the whole chart is important. Then Mars Neptune. This is a very interesting combination because first of all, the two planets are completely different, and Neptune does not like anger, ugliness, harshness, violence. So in this case, if we have aspects from Neptune, we may have some suppression of the anger, or we may feel like it's not okay to be angry, or very often there may also be guilt, which comes right after or together with the anger. So Neptune can, really kind of like make a mess emotionally, internally, and we may really feel uncomfortable with this emotion, which can bring to more of the suppression. And finally, Mars with Pluto. Two planets which both can be very aggressive. And when there is a tough aspect between them, including the conjunction, this can bring really intense, deep anger, which sometimes may even be like rage or even violence, or even like hurting ourselves. So emotionally, it could be pretty intense. But then again, Pluto can kind of like try to hide this. So I have seen charts with, let's say, oppositions between Mars and Pluto, and the person didn't like this emotion, but every now and then it's almost like losing control when they are provoked, for example, when something happens. So it's not always demonstrated. Mars, Pluto might be very private with their feelings, with their emotions, but things can be very, very intense internally, and they are capable of at times also expressing it externally, including in a more aggressive or harsh way. So shortly, that's how the different planets may affect Mars, and which are the things we need to look at in the chart. Thank you for all the comments. If I can't read all of them, I promise you that I will read them after the webinar. And of course, also people who are watching later can feel free to add their comments or questions. I will read everything. So let me share 3 charts with you as examples. I really want to thank this wonderful lady who agreed to provide the details. It's a difficult story. So this is a woman with 2 children, and there has been a very painful experience in their life. The father, the husband of the wife, has been violently murdered. So of course, we cannot like just forget about this fact, because when there is such an event in the family, there is a reason to feel angry. There is a reason to feel like there has been an injustice or whatever, whether it's just from, you know, the person who has done this or life or whatever. So of course, this is a very, very difficult situation, and I'm really honored and so grateful that we can look at their charts. So again, thank you so much. And let me share my screen with you. Sorry, one moment, please. I need to make the magic work for us. I need to use 2 computers because my astrology software doesn't work on Mac, so I have to use a PC computer. But I think we should be good now. Okay. So we have a mother with her son and her daughter. And again, thank you so much for allowing us to use the charts for educational purposes. This is the mother's chart. So first of all, 4 planets in fire signs, including a stellium in Aries. What did I do here? Okay, like this. So we have a stellium of planets in Aries, Mars is here. The sun is here as well. And pay attention to the aspects. So we have a quincunx with Saturn. Actually, this is coming from Venus. So yeah, but Venus is also part of this. So Venus is in conjunction with the Sun, Mars, and even Mercury. And the most problematic aspect is the opposition with Pluto. Pluto has a pretty intense opposition with the whole stellium here. And at the same time, Neptune is kind of like trying to bring the peace and the harmony. Neptune has only positive aspects with both Pluto and the stellium of planets here. So, of course, we can expect that. Yeah, and one more thing also. The moon is in Scorpio. So the moon is also under the rulership of both Pluto and Mars. And this can bring even more of this Mars-Plutonian energy, obviously. Let me tell you the speed of her moon. A very, very slow moon. So the speed is 11 degrees and 54 minutes. This is very close to the minimum, the possible minimum. So this is a very slow moon in Scorpio, which is fixed water sign and one of the most difficult positions for the moon. So this can show that those emotional conditions can kind of like make the woman feel stuck, and it's very difficult to let it go. And of course, there has been an awful event, which we can only imagine how painful and difficult it has been. But yeah, we can just see the pain and how intense things can be. Neptune, for me, brings the solution here. Neptune is kind of like the savior, the rescuer, the planet which can bring peace. So without, sounding like I'm telling someone what to do, but because again, we can only imagine how difficult it is, but I think that fate and, connecting with something deeper and bigger can bring the healing. Neptune is on the cusp of 5th house. So I think that in the name of her children, this wonderful lady can also kind of like connect to this healing energy. Because here's the thing, when we will see that in the charts, especially in one of the children's charts, Neptune makes people very open energetically. So Neptune on the cusp of 5th house can indicate that the children are energetically very open. And the children are also responding to the emotional state of the mother. So that there can be a very deep connection between all of them. But we do have, as we said, 4 fire planets, a stellium in Aries, Mars in a very strong position with the sun there, but unfortunately with problematic aspects. Mainly the one with Pluto is the difficult one, even though the moon is also in opposition out of signs, but again, there is an opposition with basically a full moon. So the sun is ruling the ascendant, and the sun is in conjunction with Mars. So this may also indicate some kind of more active expression of the anger. But again, with Neptune here, I think that there is also guilt that comes with this emotion. So I don't think that she is happy with being angry. I'm not sure if there's a person who is, like only happy or like really happy with being angry. But, there are some people who also feel more guilt and shame when they are angry. And I think that this may also show up as another emotion for her. Okay, let's take a look at the sun. I have spelled the sun as the sun, but anyway. Yeah, it's an interesting example as well. Mars is in Libra in first house, and Mars have a positive aspect with Neptune, with Pluto, conjunction with Venus and with Mercury, and karmic aspect with Saturn, a nonagon with Saturn. So here, I think it can be a little bit more difficult for interpretation. How do we interpret that? Because Mars is in Libra, a very weak sign, and at the same time in first house, which can activate Mars and bring more of the external expression. So the way I would look at this is internally, this boy doesn't feel comfortable with the anger. Mars in Libra is more delicate. Mars in Libra prefers peace and wants to be a diplomat and all of this. So internally, he's not comfortable with this. But he kind of like, I think that he can act in a more aggressive way if he feels threatened, if he feels attacked. Plus, another interesting thing is that we have, the boy, of course, has a mutual reception between Venus and Mars here. Venus is in Scorpio, Mars is in Libra, and actually they are in conjunction, and Venus is ruling the ascendant, and Mars is in first house as well. So in this case, I think that if there is an external expression, he won't feel comfortable with it, and it will be more, if you remember at the beginning, we said if someone feels vulnerable, or if they have been, hurt when they have been vulnerable, in order to avoid this vulnerability, they may respond with anger. So I think that internally it's really uncomfortable for him, but in order to avoid feeling vulnerable, this could be a response of, anger and but I think that most of the time it could be in a more passive way. And every now and then, again, it may build up and it could go more into like, excessive expression, because Mars is in first house. So after all, this Mars is not blocked. He's just uncomfortable with this emotion. Plus, I find this very important. Neptune trining the planets, especially Mars. I think that this also shows that he's not comfortable. He doesn't like this emotion, but Neptune can make people very open and energetically open. And because there has been an injustice in their life, because the mother has reasons to be angry, and probably she is angry at times, the child may pick up on this energy as well. So yeah, this open energy is very important. Venus is the ruler of 8th house, and Venus is in 1st house and also ruling the ascendant as well. So energetically, I think that he is more open to this. Okay, let's see the moon. Okay, so the moon is kind of like an average speed, but the moon has an opposition with Neptune. And this shows again energetically how open he is, especially when it comes to the emotions of the mother. Plus, the South Node is in conjunction with the moon, so there is a very strong connection between him and him and the mother. So that's a different Mars problem. And finally, the daughter. Okay, so here we have maybe more complicated situation, because Mars has multiple challenging aspects, and Mars is in a very weak sign position. Mars is in Taurus. So again, the tension may build up with time. Mars in Taurus does not get angry and express it over everything, but the tension can build up internally. Taurus can be also a sign which is more related to the body, a more somatic sign, more physical sign as well. Plus, Mars is part of a few configurations. There is a Tau square. Actually, it's a grand cross in the fixed signs. Mars in Taurus squaring Saturn with Jupiter and with Neptune. And Neptune squares back Mars. So yeah, this can bring lots of discomfort. Saturn can definitely build up the energy and the anger internally. Saturn can bring the desire to hold back and to control it. But pay attention, Saturn is also in a weak sign. Saturn is in Leo, Mars is in Taurus. So both of them are pretty weak. And what this can bring is, I think, fear. I think that this girl can respond with anger, mostly to fear. I think that this could be the deeper layer. On the other side, Jupiter, if Saturn restricts and wants to bring control, Jupiter can expand. So Jupiter can bring more of this and can also perhaps justify it, explain it in a way. On the other side, Neptune may bring some kind of guilt, but also more irrational actions, decisions. So this Mars is unfortunately pretty challenged. One more thing, also another aspect configuration, Saturn here and Pluto with Mercury over there. This configuration, one of the names for it was, I think, the finger of the devil. And I think I need to search for another term because I really don't like this. I don't like the analogies with religion or this word. So there should be another word for this. But what this configuration may bring is repetitive situations, almost like there are lessons that the person needs to learn, and until they do, things are repeating. So Pluto here is very triggered. Pluto is the focal point of this. So the daughter may also have more of a Pluto anger as well. And Mars is definitely part of the story, but there is also energy coming for Pluto, which is generally more intense and deeper. So definitely pain and fear are very triggered here. Let's see, what is the status of the moon? Interesting situation. The moon is in Aquarius, so a fixed sign, but the moon is very fast, almost 15-degree speed. So, and on the other side, the moon is intercepted. So perhaps the girl may have a more kind of like moods and shifts. The moon is in first house, but it could be difficult for her to recognize the deeper emotion because the moon is intercepted. So yeah, emotionally things can be quite intense here. Venus is on the ascendant. Venus is ruling the intercepted Libra. So yeah, emotionally things could be also quite intense. So of course, Mars has also some positive aspects, which we shouldn't forget, by the way. There is a trine with Sun, there is a sextile with Uranus. So all of this can be used in a positive way. But yeah, I think it takes time, because I believe that the younger the person is, especially if there's trauma in childhood, for children, it's more difficult to navigate their emotions usually. And yeah, I believe that with time, and of course, with some help from the external environment, we can improve things. So again, big thanks for those examples and for allowing us to use them. Okay, so thank you so much for being here. I hope this has been interesting and inspiring to you. I want to give a few suggestions now. I want to make this very quick and very concrete and practical of what we can do to manage the anger. Of course, astrology can be extremely helpful. We do need to understand ourselves better. So each sign position, house position, aspect of Mars, the whole chart, everything can guide us, and we can understand better what is our relationship to this emotion. And I also think that some of the combinations may give us ideas of what can help us. But there are also some practical things I want to mention. The first thing are the Bach flower remedies. Obviously, this is something personal. Everyone may need something specific for them, but Bach flower remedies are natural essences extracted from plants mostly. They are prepared individually, and they can help a lot with balancing emotions. There are different essences, but we do have some specific ones for anger or uncontrollable emotions, or meltdowns or whatever. So this could be very, very helpful. If you are interested in this, I have a free lesson actually on the Bachflower remedies, and this is something that can help. Another thing is the EFT practice, or emotional freedom technique. Again, I cannot teach you on that because it's a whole other training, but what we do is we tap on acupuncture points, and in this way we can process emotions, we can work with memories, it can be incredibly helpful, and you can literally do this immediately. Like, you don't need anything to buy, or it's amazing. Of course, if you work with a specialist, it can be even better, but you can do amazing things on your own. And I'm personally using this on a daily basis. So EFT is magical. And one more thing I want to suggest, it's a more kind of like energy holistic practice to commit to working with your emotions for 5 minutes a day. You may start with 1 or 3 minutes. That would be great as well. And not more than 5 minutes a day, but commit to this at least for a month and focus on the emotion that you want to bring into your life, kind of like the antidote of the anger, if anger is what you're struggling with. I want to give you a personal example. I'm not struggling with anger right now, but I do struggle with some feeling of overwhelm. And it's kind of like my go-to negative emotion recently. And for me, the antidote of this is easiness or flow. So I'm focusing on this emotion for 5 minutes a day, approximately, sometimes maybe a little more, but 5 is perfectly enough. And you just kind of like, you need to be on your own or use headphones if there are people around you, and just visualize this emotion. If you have symbols that show up to your mind, invite them as well. For example, for my flow, the feather, the symbol of the feather that, from birds, is symbolizing this. So I'm imagining this. What I would recommend you is to choose kind of like an easier emotion. Don't go with, for example, well, I want to be extremely excited, or I want to be extremely inspired, or try to connect with an easier emotion. Usually, some of the best are peace, harmony. You may want to connect with kindness for yourself and others. So try to go to something neutrally positive in a way. So peace is usually great. And work with this emotion for 3 to 5 minutes a day, but for a longer time and regularly. You can be amazed at what results you may achieve if you do this small practice over a longer period of time. So, of course, you may try other things, but I think that the intention and the awareness is very important, and to understand where is your issue coming from. Is it fear? Is it to avoid vulnerability? Is it to escape or avoid pain? And please don't forget, no blame and no guilt. Okay, And if you have any questions or comments, please type them in the chat. I want to tell you a little bit more about Mars Stars membership, even though honestly, I think I already did. So I hope you will join us. You have a free trial right now, so you can join literally for free. We are having one specific astrology topic webinar each month. During October, I'm planning a webinar on Lilith, the Black Moon. So we are going to talk about the mythology, the energy, the influence of Lilith, and how to understand it better. So that's the topic for October. We are going to have a Q&A session, so you can come and ask your questions about astrology in general or something personally for your chart. Also, you get access to all of my trainings, including the foundational natal astrology course, which is more than 50 hours. Basically, I'm taking you through all of the things that you need to know for natal astrology interpretation. There is a karmic astrology course. There is an energy coaching program for balancing the chakras, a course on how to use the moon and other things. And again, I will add new courses there. If you are interested in a course on anger, please let me know if that would be helpful. Okay, if you have questions, let me know. Check the links below, and I hope to see you in our program. Okay, thank you, Vivian. Yeah. Okay, that really means a lot. I want to know what you need and what you are interested in. So that really helps. Thank you so much. Brandy, thank you. Thank you a lot. Yes, Brandy talks about the shadow work. Absolutely. This can be so important. I'm using psychology in my work, and specifically the Jungian psychology. So the shadow can be extremely important. The anger could be related to this, especially if it's suppressed. It could be part of our shadow. So, yeah. Mars, Pluto can bring rape, sexual abuse, violent crime. Unfortunately, yes. Yes, that's right. Okay. Great, Monica. I hope you will be able to help your son. Okay, so thank you so much. It was an honor for me to be here with you. Let me know if you have any questions. I would love to know your thoughts. And if you want to learn more about my work, the sessions, the membership, you can go to marsstars.net or just send me an email. Thank you, and till next time.